Oh, hello guys. You're here for Education Day. So what we're gonna be talking about today, this is a prereq into diving into it deeper on your next Education Day. We're gonna talk about planes of motion, right? Don't mind my handwriting. Planes of motion. So let's see if I got my colors. I need a green pen, that's okay. We'll use black for it. So what we're gonna talk about is there's 3 planes of motions that our bodies move through, and they obviously combine and go from there. So what I mean by that is I'm gonna use red. Red is sagittal plane, okay? Which is like a crunch, extension, arm going up. So I'm going through this plane of motion, okay? Leg lift, okay? All that kind of stuff, that's sagittal plane. Then we're gonna have frontal plane, okay? Which is a side to side motion. Side to side, arms moving to the side, leg moving to the side, right? And then hip hike, all that kind of stuff. Neck moving and so forth, okay? Frontal plane, that's important. I'm gonna use black for this one. Normally I use green because I color coordinate. So I'm gonna do a little rotation, okay? So we have transverse. Hopefully you guys can see that. Transverse plane, which is rotation, okay? Rotate, rotate. My arm rotating, right? My wrist rotating, my hip rotating. Our body uses all 3 planes, or all 3 of these planes of motion to make us move around. And the cool thing about that is we do that by combining it too. So we might do like a here, rotate. So that's a frontal plane motion with rotation. We combine through those things, okay? And if I think about it, having a 6-month-old, trying to get him to sleep and so forth, when I hold him, I have to like keep this still and move and rotate and so forth. And I guess the topic about that too, which we can talk about the following week, is modes of contraction, but I don't want to digress, so excuse me. Planes of motion is important. And what I'm going to cover the next Education Day is when we do exercises, mixing up planes of motion is crucial. That's why this week we're talking about training through planes of motion. It's a really cool way to train and exercise your body because our body thinks in directions. We think about going side to side, front to back, twisting, rotating, getting stuff. And when we lose the ability anywhere within our body, but I'm just gonna say rotation, frontal plane, and sagittal, if we lose the ability to do any of those types of planes of motion with a joint, we feel not so good. Let me give you an example of what I mean by that, okay? So what I mean by that is if you ever tweaked your neck, right? And you're like, oh, I can't move. Oh, I can't move. What's kind of cool, well, it's not cool that you hurt your neck, but what's great about that is that the better you move, the better you feel, right? And so what that means is if you can move well and explore all those different positions or planes of motion, it's gonna allow you to be a robust human being. You're gonna be dynamic, be able to move, whether you're an athlete or a normal individual that likes to work out for fun or works out to do their activities and so forth. Because for us being able to train and exercise and have all of these planes of motion available is gonna be super helpful. So let me give you a little story about me. And I guess it's an analogy. The reason why I started my business is because where I was working previously, I felt limited in what I could do. I got to a point where I grew up the business, you know, and made it bigger for who I was working for, but then I felt limited because of scheduling and so forth, which is okay. That's life. Businesses shift, mindset shift, and so forth. So what do I mean by that? Say, for example, in that scenario, I lose the ability to move in the frontal or the sagittal plane, okay? Because I felt limited at my job. I felt limited at scheduling. And so because of that, I was being limited, which felt like I was limiting what I could do with my clients, and that was frustrating to me. But to be honest, that's what prompted me to start my own business, even though I was afraid. So if I lose the ability to do front or sagittal plane motion doing this and this, and I can only move this way and this way, but I can't do this and this, that's really gonna impact how I move around in space in this world. So when it came to that, I didn't wanna be limited in business from being able to only do a couple of things. I wanted to have as much available as possible to help the clients that I work with and explore and learn and go to classes and so forth. And so that's why we also exercise it. If we can exercise through these different planes and do it on a consistent basis and being good at it, it's gonna allow us to move and do what we wanna do on a regular basis, which is gonna make us feel happier because we're not gonna hurt, ache, and so forth. And that's what's pretty cool about that. So that's an introduction into planes of motion, and I'm gonna talk about the next time how certain exercises challenge different things in different planes. So everybody thinks we have to train in that plane. You can, that's an option, but I'll talk about why that's important, how your body uses isometrics, concentrics or myometrics, and eccentric or plyometrics to make sure you can move as best as possible. And then the following week, I'm gonna talk about modes of contraction. So hopefully that helped and makes sense. Start thinking about how you move and like, you know, I don't really rotate a lot. Or I don't really bend over a lot. I tend to kind of bend my knees and then go, right? And we'll talk about those things. So I hope that makes sense. It's kind of blurry on the board, but that's just an introduction and we'll really dive in to the next session. Cool, guys.